We say good afternoon to David Heurtel in for Jim Meny. And David, lots going on today. Starting with, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of, because I heard him talking about this morning, the Quebec Liberal Party, for all that, the shots that have been taken against Charles Milliard and, self-inflicted wounds, fair to criticize. And then all of a sudden, there are some people, pretty high-profile names, who say, you know what, I see a future. I want to run for this Liberal Party, including Michel Leblanc, well-known in economy here. What do you make of this?
Well, first of all, I think what happened at the end of last week, I think Charles Milliard got together with his top advisors and said, let's try to change the conversation. And the first stories about these high-profile candidacies came out over the weekend. And today, formal announcement, Pierre Cossette, who may not be very well known here in Montreal, but he basically was the head of Sherbrooke University for years. In Sherbrooke, the university is the biggest employer in the town.
Right.
It's a huge deal, and Pierre Cossette is very well known. So it's a big candidacy for the riding with Sherbrooke, and so the story is announced now. These candidacies are not all confirmed, mind you, but if the Liberals are willing to leak them, it must be pretty close to being closed. So, as you said, Michel Leblanc, former head of the Montreal Chamber of Commerce, Julie White, who is prior in her career was a long-time advisor. She was a senior staffer when I was in politics to Gaétan Barrette, among other people, up until Friday. She was the CEO of the Manufacturers and Exporters Association of Quebec, a big trade association here in Quebec. She resigned abruptly, of course, sending all these rumors going, but confirmed in these stories. You have David Bowles, who's currently the head of the Charlemagne College here on the South Shore. He is thought of being a candidate in Chateauguay. I forgot Julie White's probably going to be in the Quebec City region. She ran in the Jean Talon riding back in 2022. So first objective, I think, with all of this is saying clearly, okay, we're changing the conversation from the terrible week that was last week. But two, it really sends a very, very strong message. Let's face it here. If you look back in 2022, one of Dominique Anglade's many issues in 2022 is that she couldn't recruit high-profile star candidates.
Right.
And even those, some candidates she did recruit, it was like last minute. And she, there was a story in Quebec City, remember, where she didn't even have a candidate coming out of the campaign bus, and how bad things were then. So what you're seeing here is Charles Milliard showing that he can attract people, and that means momentum. That means other people, because the discussions have been going on for weeks, sometimes months, they'll continue. There are prospective candidates that are on the fence. With an announcement like this, it shows momentum. And when you have that, that's very important when you're trying to recruit more high level candidates. So it's good news. And in terms of the townships, where the Liberals are currently shut out. Remember, there was a day where Liberals routinely swept the region provincially. Now you have Charles Milliard running in Orford. You're going to have Cossette in Sherbrooke, and now Frédéric Beauchemin, who currently is the M&A in Marguerite Bourgeois here on the island, is going to move to Mégantic-Compton. So you have and he's one of the key economic players in the caucus right now for the Liberals. So you have already three big names now in the township. So to show how serious the Liberals are in retaking that region.
Interesting, right? Because you're describing, David, really a shift of focus. It's really another case of don't look here, look there. So we're leaving everything Charles Milliard did last week, which we kind of wondered about. And look, we have new people now, serious people who want to run.
Go well, yeah.
Okay.
No, but that's it. It's crisis management 101.
Exactly.
Change the conversation.
Yeah.
And so we'll see if it sticks, but if you keep on having these announcements, these high profile announcements, it changes the conversation,
Sure.
and it's a good way to manage a crisis, because let's face it, last week I think Charles Milliard wants to forget it as soon as possible.
So, speaking of changing the topic, if you will, Quebec Solidaire, who's decided to talk less about separation, have decided now to talk more about eating the rich. I mean, taxing the rich. What they would like to do is put in a new capital tax on fortunes exceeding 25 million. There's also one for fortunes exceeding 100 million for all the 4,000 people who would qualify in the entire province.
Yeah.
This is something they want to sell, and I will tell you, and we all know this, I think. You're hearing more and more politicians. Yes, Bernie Sanders started this a long time ago, and AOC is on the same bandwagon. The mayor of New York, same idea. So are they just deciding, let's hitch our bus to this? It seems to be working.
I think they're hitching their bus to Zoran Mamdani, period. I mean, because if you look at the program, it's almost a copy-paste with certain adjustments, obviously, from Mamdani's platform. But yes, okay, so taxing the rich. Problem is, in Quebec, we don't have that many of them. Yeah. It's not like in New York, where Mamdani's tax on pied-à-terres will reap an estimated $500 million a year. Here, it's not like we're going to be, we don't have the same level of wealth, but what I will say about that measure, though, is that for Quebec Solidaire, they're at least jump-starting a conversation that is long overdue in Quebec, because the model right now, we are not raising nearly enough money to pay for what we have to pay. For example, healthcare, infrastructure, but you could go down the list. And also, our tax system is broken. We are simply, there are people that just cannot afford more. Now, the other four parties aren't addressing this. And the next administration in October of 2026, whoever wins government, this is not going to be a term of grand new projects and massive spending in new areas. We're going to have to face the difficult choices that we're faced with right now of not having enough money and the fact that we're not taxing in the right places and are not raising nearly enough money to pay for what we want to pay for. So at least they're starting the conversation. We'll see if the four other parties actually come up with something interesting. Now, the thing is that we talked about, they want to do government-run Costco's for groceries. That's a major problem in itself. But what I really don't like is the tone. You have this quasi-Marxist tone coming out of this. Saul Zanetti, the co-spokesperson of the party, in a press briefing after the platform. Well, it's not the platform. After these resolutions were passed, comes out and calls out an entrepreneur, well-known entrepreneur in French Quebec called François Lambert. He was a dragon. He was part of the French versions of the Dragon's Den. He's very active on social media and calls him out specifically saying, well, people like François Lambert, they won't get hurt. They can still drink their wine on Friday night. Well, the thing is that Quebec's economy, Aaron, is basically almost all small and medium-sized businesses. It's an entrepreneur-driven economy. And when you're attacking the entrepreneur class, that's not a way to go get votes in Quebec. Same thing by proposing that freeze on rents. That might help the current base, but there's this idea at Quebec Solidaire that only extremely wealthy people are landlords. That's not true. Yeah. In Quebec, and you know them, we hear them calling on the show. People, that have duplexes, triplexes, it's their pension plan. They've borrowed money, they have mortgages, and it's basically their nest egg. And they're not super wealthy people. And so these types of proposals are, again, disconnected from the reality of Quebecers, and it's the big problem of the left. That it's whether it's the NDP, whether it's Quebec Solidaire, whether it's Projet Montréal, it's just not modernized and being able to connect with Quebecers on proposals that work for them.
By the way, to your point, and I think you're 100% right, this idea of calling out a specific individual, I mean, that's right out of Zoran Mamdani's playbook, because he was standing in front of Ken Griffin's condo in New York City saying, hey, that guy who lives there. I mean, I don't understand what that is supposed to prove. And obviously, to the person you're pointing out, that's, in a sense, a violation of their privacy as well.
Oh, it is. And he responded on social media, and he has a big following. And today he was. I even read something. Maybe he's considering legal action in defamation. And how is this? How do you this made up class warfare?
Yeah.
Where does it get you? Because again, remember in 2022, Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois comes out with these wide-ranging taxes. You know, it became the orange tax, and it hurt Quebec Solidaire because, you know, they wanted to heavily tax people that had, you know, in assets $1 million, $2 million. Well, it ain't what it used to be. I'm not saying everybody's got $1 million in assets, but when you're a farmer, you're leveraged to the hilt, and maybe your farm is worth $1 million or $2 million. But you don't have more money to pay in taxes, and it hurt a lot of their political chances in 22. Yeah. But yet again, it's the tone. This in New York, it's one thing standing in front of a building and criticizing that a man, and I agree with you on calling out specifically, but people in New York City, they're apartments that are worth $250 million. It's one thing taxing that when it's a pied-à-terre and saying, okay, you, an entrepreneur-based economy, if you're an entrepreneur and you've accumulated maybe $5 million or even $25 million, you're somehow evil. This idea that generating wealth, generating money is dirty, is wrong, and should be criticized. There's something terribly wrong with that in the Quebec Solidaire discourse.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, generally, and this is a discussion for another day, the fact that the wealth gap now, right, is wider than it has ever been between those at the bottom and those at the top, that basically gives them a wedge to go in and point someone like this out and say, see, look, partly the reason for this being as bad as it is now is because of people like this, which of course is completely untrue, but it seems like a rallying cry for people who want to get involved this way.
There you go. And it activates the other political parties. This is going to help Éric Duhem and the Conservatives. This is going to help other parties get people to look at them. And why not change the tone? Because there are very wealthy people in Quebec, in Canada, and in the rest of the world who are saying we should be paying more. Like, for example, here in Quebec, the Trottier family, which has a big foundation, especially involved in the environment, the head of the Trottier Foundation, she says, look, we should be doing more in terms of paying taxes and paying more of our fair share because of the wealth inequality in Quebec and in the rest of the country. But at the same time, it's a change of tone. So I don't get this old 70s, again, quasi-Marxist rhetoric that doesn't do anything. Because there are people that, for example, I know that are very wealthy, because you would think in the Plateau, which is Quebec Solidaire, I mean, there are condos in the Plateau that are being sold for over $1 million. Same thing in Outremont. And they're even in Hochelaga Maisonneuve, there are condos that are over $1 million. So hold on a second. People are working hard. Some of it is on debt, but the idea here is change the tone and try to build something. It's just being the old activist left that is not doing anything positive.
David, I got to wrap, but I want to ask you, because I'm coming back to a question I started today on the future of the airport here, but people brought up Mirabel. So why did Mirabel go bust? Do you actually know the story? Like, why did we lose that airport?
Well,
do you know?
Well, the real reason, do you know?
No,
or do you want?
I don't.
Okay. The real reason is that ultimately the major airlines were sick and tired of the costs and did not want to divide their flights between two airports, so they decided to concentrate on Dorval. It was just the idea and the consumer. I mean, ultimately, a lot of consumers did not want. We didn't develop the transit necessary or anything, so there was a lot of problems both on the consumer side and on the airlines side to develop it properly.
I'm going to take the airline side. That seems like a rational reason. Okay, good. They didn't want to fly there anymore when you have an airport just down the road. David Heurtel. David, thank you. I appreciate it.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.